Hey guys, uh, hey, just hang on a second. Make sure everything is set up. In fact, let me put on a tune as I get things set up here.
Relax.
Okay. Okay, guys, hear it? Yes, my day's doing fine, Donnie. Oh, TwistedDanns. Okay, let me bring you on right now. Great, everybody can hear me. Okay, I'm gonna bring in Clovis right now. Clovis, are you there? Yes, I can hear you. Can everybody hear Clovis? Yeah, I hope so too. Uh, let's see if we get a response. Yeah, I know. Like, I myself just rewatched the pilot for preparation, and I even watched a couple of your videos on the show, specifically your top 10 Billy and Mandy episodes. Do you still stand by that list 3 years later? Oh, they can't? Oh, oh crap. Let me let me fix the audio source here. Uh, okay. Hang on a second, guys. Let me go into my Skype settings. Okay, where is it? Okay, try it again. Uh, can you hear Clovis now?
Domo, konbawa.
Okay, can you guys hear him now?
Am I listenable now? Am I accessible to the chat?
Let's wait here. I made that same mistake again with my first live stream. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so Norbert says that he can hear us now, so I think we're good. I think we're good.
Okay, great, excellent. Welcome, guys, to my newest live stream. This is one I've been excited for a couple weeks now. As you Cartoon Network nerds know, just yesterday, the pilot episode to The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy premiered as part of the Big Pick, was a contest for viewers to vote on what will be the next cartoon. And of course, as we know, Billy and Mandy would be the winner, but it would premiere as Grim and Evil with Evil Con Carne attached to it, of course. And and I, it's a really big milestone for us who are fans of the show and for Cartoon Network in general. And I thought uh, this would be a perfect opportunity to finally bring on my guest here. He's a longtime fanatic of the show. He's a great cartoon reviewer at that. Please give a big, proper, warm welcome to Clovis, aka TwistedDanns.
Full disclosure, the pilot for Billy and Mandy still holds up.
Yes.
Y'all should still watch it. It's still good. The animation might be a little bit unrecognizable, but it's still good and
Okay.
also high.
Okay, Clovis, don't get ahead of yourself here. We'll save that. Yeah, we'll save that till after we talk about the brief history of Billy and Mandy. But I want
Sure.
to let you, Clovis, talk a bit about yourself to those who aren't so familiar with you, what you do.
Okay, so I am a quote unquote cartoon reviewer. I'm a part of the clique. I review cartoons sometimes. Not as much recently, but I still, review some things that come out. Um, I like drawings that move, and Billy and Mandy is my jam. One of
Yes.
my earliest videos was about Billy and Mandy, or at
Uh,
least one of my most public earlier videos is about Billy and Mandy. Yeah, it's I want to say it's my favorite cartoon of all time, but to be honest, I don't really put that much thought into what are my actual favorites. I just say it's my favorite because it's a cartoon that always comes in mind, and I'm like, you know what, I like this one more than most cartoons, so I'm gonna consider it but the best. So
yeah.
yeah, that's my history.
Okay, and I even want to ask you, Clovis, well, when exactly did you become a fan of the show? Like, which age, which time period?
That's interesting. I live in a African country. Well, not no, right now, but I grew up in an African country.
Right?
So the version of Cartoon Network that I had is a lot different from yours.
Right?
And that also meant that some shows aired a lot later than when they did in the United States. As far as Billy and Mandy, I'm pretty sure I became a fan of it like since the very beginning. Like I've always been a fan. To be honest, I will always kind of get excited for every new cartoon, but I do remember Billy and Mandy being a cartoon that while I wouldn't consider like my favorite at the time, it was something that I enjoyed. As far as when I first started watching it, it was probably around maybe 2004 or 5, one of those two. It can't be any earlier than that.
Okay. Well, I see Norbert tell me that my voice is a bit quieter than Clovis. I'm just wondering uh, if I could just turn up my volume on my microphone, or if I could just speak up. Is this a good enough volume for you guys? Can you guys hear me well still?
Also, to answer Norbert, I'm from Mozambique. Fun fact: there's a weapon called Mozambique in Apex Legend. I found that out recently, and it's really funny.
That's cool. Uh, and before I kind of did that screw up with the audio, I was asking Clovis if if that top 10 Billy and Mandy videos, that top 10 Billy and Mandy episodes video he did, if he still holds up to it 3 years later.
Oh, no.
Oh,
There are some things I probably would change. For example, I don't think the Halloween special is my favorite anymore. I'd probably put others above it.
oh, okay.
It's yeah, and I don't know. I feel like I mean it's been 3 years. My tastes have changed. I've revisited the series more times, so
Yeah.
I'm sure the list would be a lot different.
Okay. So recapping the pilot, obviously it'll be no sweat for you.
Wait, what? What did you say?
Oh,
I wasn't paying attention.
I said, I even just watched your review of The Crawl Niceness, and you were talking about how you watch every episode of Billy and Mandy time and time again. Like, you can memorize every single line from it. Well, so with that being said, talking about the pilot from memory would be no hard task for you.
No, it would not.
Yeah. And okay, so let's get to the main topic. But before we do, I just want to let you guys know if you guys have any questions for me or Clovis, it's best to save them for the when we're close to finishing the live stream, just so the discussion will flow better. But if there's but if it's relevant to Billy and Mandy, your comment could be acknowledged as we're discussing it. Otherwise, we you could save it for when we're close to being done. And even if
Yes.
you, yeah, even if you were to give me a super chat, I will thank you for it, and I'll take note of who gave it to me, and I would answer it and after when we're almost done.
Also,
Okay,
if anyone has any questions about anime, you can ask me around the end. Just
okay,
saying.
yeah, okay. So let's talk about the humble beginnings of Billy and Mandy, and the earliest traces to the history I found is when Maxwell Adams, whose real name is Adam Burton, by the way, he created a comic called Billy in Space during his childhood, and the Billy in that comic, it actually is different from the Billy we know on the show, but it's probably the same that we would see in the student film that we're going to talk about right now. Years later, in 1995, Maxwell Adams went to a university in Pennsylvania, and he created an rather infamous student film that's been watched for many years called Trepanation of the Skull and You, and it was for years it was never shown publicly. It was only released like about 4 years ago at the Trauma Film Festival, and to the surprise of many folks, they were expecting it to look like this. Yeah, you guys recognize that?
I, I mean, I recognize it because I've seen a billion times.
Yeah. So the reasoning behind this is Maxwell wanted to redo the short film into full color, but he couldn't afford it, so all that's left was this. So that's why the actual short film was all grainy and black and white, like sort of like a 40s or 50s instructional film that he animated with cutouts. He cut out the animation drawings and he colored them with markers and he glued them onto celluloids. He thought it would be more convenient to do it that way than with paint and ink and paint the traditional way. So yeah, Maxwell considers this what we're looking at right now to be sort of the missing link between the student film we were able to see and the official Cartoon Network pilot.
Looking back at this screenshot, you can tell that the backgrounds, while it does have that sort of rusty aesthetic, it
Yeah,
doesn't have the squares, the really transparent squares that you always see. So, looking at this, it's kind of weird.
yeah, and like Billy and Milkshakes over here, they don't look too different, but Mandy, she kind of reminds me of Vendetta from Making Fiends, which I know you're a fan of, Clovis. That's
Massive
Nick too,
fan.
so yeah. So yeah, Trepanation of the Skull and You, if you haven't seen it yet, basically it's about Billy and quote unquote Mandy, who's completely different from the Mandy that we're all familiar with, and arguably just as creepy because she's always smiling, always. Like, Mandy teaches Billy about uh, basically using a drill into your skull to let out some darker spirits or something like that. Like it's some really weird dark stuff, like arguably just as disturbing as the actual Billy and Mandy cartoon that we will get. And Clovis, another video of yours that I rewatched was your video debunking fan theories that people have about the show, and one of them was Mandy drilling the into Billy's skull. That was the cause of him being stupid, but that was apparently incorrect, right?
Yes, it is absolutely incorrect. Although I don't
Right.
remember the reasons I gave. Although you can just say that
Well, the
this the
reasons you gave,
trepanation of the skull in you is like very different from the actual final product. So to suggest that they're both canon is a little bit weird.
yeah. Well, the proof that you gave was you sold a couple of screenshots that showed Billy's skull, and there was no scar in the skull.
Oh yeah. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from this, after Maxwell graduated from the university after making this short film as part of his junior thesis, he got hired as an intern at Film Roman. He worked on the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat and King of the Hill, and afterwards he would go to Hanna-Barbera, where he would be a writer and storyboard artist on Cow and Chicken and I Am Weasel. And around that same time, he thought it was about time to pitch his own series. And one out of 12 pitches he made was a series called Milkman. And Milkman was about this superhero who would find missing children based on the images on the milk cartons, which I'm not sure if they even still do that. But yeah, Billy and Mandy were the supporting characters for that concept. Uh, but the executives thought those two kids would be much more interested in their own soul than the milkman himself. And this is
They were
actually
right.
yeah, and this was actually a cartoon origin story that I heard for a couple of other cartoons like Ren and Stimpy and the Proud Family, in which what who would eventually become the main characters. They were originally supporting characters, but then the TV executives were like, "Hey, this guy and what's her name? We want the show to be about them instead." So yeah, Billy and Mandy was another one of those examples there. Okay, what else? Like I have my list of points to bring up. So yes, and right here is the the art that Maxwell did when he was creating the Pitts Bible for the show. Um, and in case you don't know what if you don't know what that is, it means that it's a document that gives a synopsis of the show and gives some samples of episode plots and the character descriptions. And this was what Maxwell
I've
did,
a- I've actually written I've actually written mini Bibles, which are basically pitch Bibles
right?
before. Yeah, it was just to submit it to like Amazon Studios or whatever. All of them were rejected, of course, because you know
Oh,
it is
well,
what it is.
well. I don't think you should give up. If you want to make your own show, you should kind of continue. Like like what I said with Maxwell, he pits 12 different shows before eventually settling with or finding luck with Billy and Mandy here. So don't give up, Clovis.
I'll say one thing:
Yeah,
Mandy's design is actually not that bad here.
yeah. And the
Although she does resemble Blossom a little too much.
you mean
No, it's not
Bubbles?
even. No. Actually, no. She's a mix of Bubbles and Blossom in a weird way.
Okay. And just a hint of Dee Dee, right?
Well, not really. She doesn't actually remind me that much of Dee Dee,
Okay.
aside from the twin tails.
Yeah. Okay, so how did the Grim Reaper became part of the Billy and Mandy concept? Well, originally, Maxwell would have had the Satan to be Billy and Mandy's sidekick, but as you know, Cow and Chicken and Iron Weasel already had the Red Guy, and the Powerpuff Girls was starting up the same time, so they already had him as an antagonist. So he thought about having the Grim Reaper instead. So,
Yeah, actually, I wanted to actually talk about that because I mean, even till this day, but if you look at the way Grim behaves, you can kind of tell that Grim was sort of meant to be this embodiment of evil and stuff,
right?
which is not actually what the Grim Reaper is. And so I think it's interesting seeing how there are traces of Maxwell Adams' desire to make him Satan, but instead he resorted to making him the Grim Reaper, which I think was a good decision because, I mean, Red Guy, Cow and Chicken is like really iconic,
Yeah,
and I respect Maxwell Adams for wanting to do something a little more unique.
yeah, I agree. So, again into production of the pilot itself, I have three stories regarding the voice acted. Well, starting with Grimm, he was originally going to be played by he was originally going to be played by the guy who played Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. So Grimm was going to have a British accent, but then Greg Eagles came in, and after trying a couple of things like a Swedish accent and so forth, he settled with a Jamaican accent. And as I watched the Billy and Mandy reunion panel that happened a couple months ago before the lockdown happened, uh, Greg Eagle said that he isn't Jamaican himself, but he thought that a Jamaican accent for Grimm was just something funny and charming to throw in, and the results were excellent. And I know you agree too, Clovis, right?
I agree. Out of curiosity, did you know that he had a Jamaican accent when you were a kid? Because I literally never noticed. I did know that he had a particularly interesting accent, but I didn't. I never realized it was Jamaican.
Yeah, I think I kind of already knew for several years that Grimm had a Jamaican accent there.
Uh, I guess I might be one of the few ones.
Okay, so as for Billy, Richard Stephen Horvitz, he said that he intentionally wanted Billy to sound different from other Little Boy characters in cartoons, who a majority of them were voiced by women, like Bart Simpson and Tommy Pickles. So he came up with this sort of dopey, raspy voice, who Richard admitted himself that at first it was much softer during the grim and evil days, but afterwards it became wilder and more obnoxious and more fast-paced, much to the annoyance to some viewers, but I tolerate Billy just fine. Like, he's my favorite of the main trio even, but I know your favorite is Mandy, Clovis.
Yeah, you. I wonder because I. It's really weird because it's not just Billy's voice that became a little more less childlike, but even Billy's dad, his voice started to become a little more similar to Billy around the end. You can especially notice that during the. I think you might be able to notice it during the Invaded special, but I think you can also see that in the Big Boogie Adventure. Yeah, like you'll notice that both of them have a very similar voice.
Okay, yeah. And speaking of Mandy, as for her, Grey the Wild Griffin actually revealed this story a couple of times at comic panels, Comic Con panels, I mean. So Mandy was originally going to be played by Maxwell Adams' wife at the time. She recorded all of her lines, and they turned out to be terrible. Grey herself isn't afraid to admit that her Maxwell's wife's voice kind of sucked. So the casting director thought it would be cool if Gray would be the one to redo all of the lines for Mandy. And it's interesting to note that around that same time, the Evil Concarne pilot was starting up, so uh, Gray was already casted as Major Dr. Ghastly, and I found that to be cool. So with that being said, the pilot to Billy and Mandy was already close to being done. Like, it's in the post-production stage while Evo Concarne was starting up as well. Because in case you didn't know, Evo Concarne was pretty much created as a backup in case Billy and Mandy didn't win the big pick. Because Cartoon Network had seemed to have that much belief in Maxwell turning out, giving a great show to their schedule. So, and even when Billy and Mandy did win, the executives still liked Evil Concarne, so Maxwell was like, hey, Dexter's Laboratory and Cow and Chicken, they had middle segments, like Dial M for Monkey and I Am Weasel respectively, so I was thinking of how about we do the same thing, only we give both segments equal billing, title the show Grim and Evil, and the rest is a kind of history from there.
Real talk, I probably would have been happy if they had continued that way.
Yeah, I agree. The combination of Billy and Mandy and Evil Con Carne, they're really charming. Like, I wish they had
Yeah.
more. I wish they had more crossovers. And I know you don't love the two shows equally, Clovis, but I kind of do. So that's why I said I was. They would just the main characters of one show and that other show just appearing together more often. You know.
One thing that upsets me is that the last crossover that they had is legitimately one of the best episodes of both Billy and Mandy and Evil Con Carne, but not
Yeah.
enough people recognize it, which they should, because it's little. It's one of the funniest ones.
Yeah, I agree. And there are a couple, I've seen a couple people, particularly those who prefer Evil Con Carne over Billy and Mandy, how Company Halt is kind of underwhelming, especially if it's supposed to be the quote unquote official series finale to Evil Con Carne. Like, they kind of wish they did a little bit more with it if it's supposed to be a send off to that show. But I thought it was good the way it was. But then again, I haven't watched it in a long time. I watched it in its entirety only once in 2017, but I look forward
Oh,
to rewatching it again.
I mean, I guess as a finale of Evil Con Carne, I can sort of get how some people might not think is like conclusive enough. Personally, I sort of see that as a General Scar's send off,
Uh,
his sort of last mission before he eventually quit
to become a
Evil
member of
Concarne
Thunder
for
Fist.
good.
Yeah, to become a member of
Yeah,
Thunder
yeah,
Fist. Yeah,
yeah. Although that was before, but anyway. And one thing that General Scar eventually realized was that hanging out with Doctor Ghastly and Hector is like really hard and very annoying. And so I think that the episode did a really good job encapsulating that to the point where by the end, when Scar was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do this anymore," it made a lot of sense. And because of that, I sort of respect it as a sort of finale because. I mean, I don't know. Does anyone expect any like redemption arc from Hector or something like that? He's gonna remain evil forever.
yeah. Although Ghastly is kind of in between. Like, she technically is a villain, but she's kind of a sweetheart. Like, the primary reason why she's working for Hector was because, well, not only does she need a job in science, but she was blown away by Hector's beefcake body before he was blown up, of course.
Yeah. I mean, she's the nicest, but I don't think she. I don't know. I feel like I feel like for Ghastly to like have a quote unquote good ending, she would have to sort things out with her feelings for Hector, which are clearly unhealthy.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that would happen anytime soon.
yeah. Okay, we're getting slightly off topic. Maybe
Yeah,
sometime
you're
in
right.
the future I'll bring you on just to talk about Evil Con Carne, particularly its final few episodes. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
We should do this again.
Yeah. So anyway, let me switch to a different picture here. Yeah. So fast forward to June 9, 2000. Billy and Mandy was airing as part of the Big Pick, as I mentioned before, and it was, of course, it will be the winner of Whatever Happened to Robot Jones in second place, and a much more obscure pilot called Long Hair and Double Dome in third place. And there were some other pilots that were part of the contest too, like there was Faux Pause, which was created by that guy from the Wild House, who I'm not gonna name, and also Lucky Lydia, which was created by uh, Bob Camp from Ren and Stimpy, and there was another one called Uncle Gus and Prickles, and basically, if any of you guys have memories of playing the Cartoon Network game, Cartoon Summer Resort, the characters that you play as, they originated from the pilots that were shown as part of the Big Pig, like Uncle Gus, Vivian, Long Hair, I think that's the name of the tall caveman, and Prickles the cactus. They all came from those pilots. Summer Resort was tie-in to the Big Pick. Though it was kind of too bad that you couldn't play as any of the Billy and Mandy characters. Do you agree, Clovis?
Well, I mean, we already had other quote unquote good Billy and Mandy Flash games, so
Yeah, like
I'm willing to take that.
my favorite to this day is Harem Scarum, which only
Yeah, me too.
only recently I found out it was a tie-in to the Halloween special.
I think I played that game way before I actually watched the Halloween special, which is really weird.
Yeah, same thing with me. Yeah. So anyway, where was I? Trying to find my words here. So, Clovis, have you seen any of the other pilots that were shown as part of the Big Pick in 2000?
No, I have not seen them. Although it is very possible that I've seen them, but I just forgot
Yeah.
because I do have vague like that name Uncle Gus sounds familiar for some reason, but I have no idea what it actually is.
Yeah. Well, he's one of the playable characters in Cartoon Summer Resort, so if you look up that game, you will see Uncle Gus. And another thing about the Big Pick I want to mention is regarding Sheep in the Big City. Uh, that's so. The funny thing with that is that show's pilot was aired in August during the same event, but the show itself will premiere a couple months later in November. So the Sheep in the Big City was already greenlit for a full season. Uh, it was already greenlit for a full season in 1999, so I kind of question why did they show the pilot like as a candidate to vote for it it was if they already approved of it anyway for a full season. That kind of confused me there.
I remember you liking Ship in the Big City. It's like one
Yeah,
of your all-time favorites.
yeah, it's I now consider it second place behind Evil Con Carne as far as underrated Cartoon Network shows go. Like I like the art style and the humor and again, I'm trying not to be too off topic, but yeah, it's a good show. Been a fan of it for over a decade, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Moving on to the Big Pick show itself. When Billy and Mandy was the winner, um, I just have to talk about. Of course, this was back when Cartoon Fridays was one of the best things to catch on Cartoon Network at the time, and the host of that night was the mayor of Townsville, accompanied by Miss Bellum, and one of the highlights before the show one was uh, was when uh, was when the Gangrene Gang hacked the show and instead of Billy and Mandy being the winner, it was this fictitious, wicked, awesome Gangrene show. Yeah, it was typical Cartoon Fridays bumpers humor there.
Good times.
Yeah,
Very good times.
yeah,
I like it almost as much as CN City.
yeah. I agree. Um, I don't know what else. And I love how the mayor's reaction was when Billy and Mandy did win. He was like, "Congratulations, Billy and Mandy." That was my impression there. You will have lots of action figures built off of you, and you'll have your own show named after you too. And then only fast forward a year later, the show would be actually be titled Grim and Evil, and I could imagine the kids back then would be like, I thought the show was gonna be called Billy and Mandy. What's up with that bear and the brain that talks on top of his head there? You know.
Out of curiosity, did you because I when did you start watching Billy and Mandy?
Oh, me? Well, firstly, I have
Yeah.
very vague memories of watching it as part of Grim and Evil, which aired on Teletoon at night, like during their adult block, because apparently Teletoon didn't think a show about a, a, a two kids and the Grim Reaper and a guy who was blown up uh, trying to take over the world, like they didn't think it was family friendly enough, even though they still aired Cow and Chicken, which I think is slightly more
Even
raunchy.
less, even less family
Yeah,
friendly than Billy and Mandy in some cases.
yeah, I know. But I have one of my first real memories of watching Billy and Mandy as a standalone show. Like it was around 2005 and 2006. It was something that I would catch, and it was even something that I wasn't really allowed to watch. And I know that was common in a lot of households that Billy and Mandy would be banned from the house. But yeah, among the episodes that I remember seeing back then were the Attack of the Clowns and Complete and Utter Chaos. I fondly remember when Mandy used the Apple of Discord, I think, to turn Billy literally into a horse's butt. And
I feel bad for a lot of you Americans. Like I never had this. I never had trouble watching Billy and Mandy. I watched it pretty liberally. My mom didn't care.
yeah,
And back then, like I don't know, like Billy and Mandy, I think became weirdly creepier. Like that was the impression I got when I was a kid. That Billy and Mandy got creepier later on, but also got funnier at the same time. But now I feel like while it did get funnier, I think it got less creepy when time went as time went on. I think the first season, well, maybe not just first. I guess a little bit of the second season too. They did lean more on the horror elements than later on when it became almost like a weird parody of animation in general.
yeah. And I also remember the the Keeper of the Reaper episode, which is one of my absolute favorites and one of yours, and I'm sure a lot of other fans as well. It's his absolute favorite episodes, all mostly because of Fred Burger. Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
pretty iconic character. Everyone likes him.
yeah. And Sex Friend mentions about the other big pig Kids Next Door. Yeah, that was other the year Grim and Evil premiered was when Kids Next Door's pilot was the winner, and I'm not too big of a fan of that, but it's still good, and I enjoyed the crossover with Billy and Mandy after uh, close to both of the show's demise. And just quickly, what were your thoughts on that crossover, Clovis?
I thought it was a good crossover.
Yeah,
Although there is actually one thing I want to comment on, but I'll do so later. And it's actually something that it doesn't really have anything to do in particular with the crossover. It actually has to do with Mandy as a character, but we'll get into that later once we start talking about the pilot. Because I have
okay,
some mixed opinions on. Actually, I'll talk about it when we get there.
okay, okay. To quickly wrap up, I didn't mention to finish off this history segment, I forgot to mention the fact that the Billy and Mandy pilot was the only thing related, the only thing in the series to be produced by Hanna-Barbera, who at that time they just moved their headquarters to Warner Bros. Animation. And Maxwell Adams even mentioned on his Tumblr about how during the making of the pilot, they were limited with how many color palettes they could use for skin tones. The ones for Warner Brothers are the same for the ones for Hanna-Barbera, so that's why Mandy looked different than how she would in the actual show. And on the same on and on the same blog, not the same, not necessarily the same blog post, I think, but on the same Tumblr, he mentioned how the logo at the end, with Grimm and the Hanna-Barbera text and a black rectangle on a white background, which was common
Yeah,
for the early cartoons at the time. Uh,
yeah.
uh, Billy and Mandy's
Actually,
pi-
about that logo,
yeah,
some of you probably have to find the initial end credit scenes for the pilot,
yeah.
which is unfortunately not that easy to find on YouTube. I have it downloaded because I had to a few years ago,
Oh,
but some of you will probably have a little bit of a hard time finding it.
oh, well, I made sure that I downloaded when I was extracting the audio when I was remaking that Grim variant for Classic Logo Remake Party 4, which I know I'm sure some of you guys remember I remade the Billy and Mandy Hanna-Barbera logo, which Maxwell himself said that the pilot was one of the last things to use that that template for Hanna-Barbera logos, and he says that he still has it in his closet.
That's pretty sweet.
I know. And oh, I'm sorry. One more thing before we get to the pilot discussion. I just loved how, I just loved on the night that Grim and Evil premiered, how Hector and Grim were just talking about how Hector was never a part of the big pick since his pilot was essentially an afterthought, or not an afterthought, but just a backup in case Billy and Mandy did win. You so look for the premiere for Grim and Evil on YouTube, and you'll find it. It's pretty damn funny. Okay. Okay. So I think we could move on now and start talking about the pilot itself. Clovis, since you're the special guest and you're the longtime Billy and Mandy expert here, how about you give the rundown on what happens, how Billy and Mandy and Grim became eternal friends?
So, one thing I'd like to first address is the fact that Billy thought that Grim was Santa Claus. So,
Yes.
interesting way to start the episode. But
Yeah.
anyway, I mean, looking back at that pilot, it's very strange for several reasons. I mean, it's a good pilot. Don't get me wrong, but when you start to look back at certain things, it's a very strange pilot to revisit because, first of all, you did say that Grim had a Jamaican accent, but in the pilot, it was actually not as Jamaican as he would sound later on,
Yeah,
which is fine. I don't mind.
it sounded deeper, a bit more
Exactly.
sinister than what it will become
Yeah.
much later on.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious difference between this pilot and the rest is the art style. It looks different, and I mean, although the backgrounds still look more or less the same, which is interesting. And I mean, the episode starts with like Billy and Mandy. They were just kind of like at first it starts off with Billy just playing around at the backyard with a bunch of toys. I think they were like GI Joe or something like that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
Mandy, and then
Maxwell.
Mandy comes along. Like she literally just melts one of the toys for no reason. And
Yeah,
Billy was all like, um, "Why?" And she
yeah,
was all like, "Take me to see your pet." It's all like, "Oh, okay, let's go see the pet then." And then it's
yeah.
it's so weird. And then when they go inside, the Mandy I think was the first one to realize that it was what's the name of the pet again? I,
Mr.
I had it
Snuggles.
in my
Mr.
exactly Mr.
Snuggles.
Snuggles.
Oh, and just to briefly talk about Mr. Snuggles, don't you kind of find it disappointing how after the pilot and after the second episode, Skeletons in the Water Closet, Mr. Snuggles pretty much just disappeared from the show as Billy's pet. He was mostly replaced by milkshakes.
What's especially strange is the fact that his impending death was never addressed later on. So I don't know
Yeah,
what's up with that. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know if you can just cheat death like that. Although, interesting thing about this episode is the fact that technically Mandy cheated. So in a way, she cheated death, even though she wasn't actually the one who was dying. So I just think that's an interesting sort of clever thing about the episode that I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional. But anyway,
yeah,
um, yeah, Grim shows up. Billy thinks he's Santa Claus, and something I really like about this episode is Mandy's attitude because
yeah,
she's just completely like she's completely unfazed by Grim. She's all like, "Oh, it's the Grim Reaper, I guess,"
yeah,
and there's one line in particular that I really like, and that's where because Grim was trying to like convince Billy to give Mr. Snuggles because he was dying. But the, Billy kept like unintentionally dodging the question because he thought that he was Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And at some point, Mandy decided to take on the conversation, and she was all like, Mr. Reaper, you are very powerful and evil and all. And, I respect that.
Yeah.
I really like that line
Yeah. Me too.
because she said it's so natural. Like it's one of the few times you'll hear Mandy like talking almost normally, and so yeah, I really like that line.
Yeah. And
And
I love the scene where Mandy offers Grim tea and it just falls out of his mouth. Although in
yeah,
the show itself, he's still able to drink and eat stuff, right?
yeah, pretty much. I think he still does.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't he eat cereals? Like he has to drink the milk.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
he also has a tongue that shows up sometimes. It's green and moldy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing about this episode is that the outcome of this game, because eventually what happened was Mandy and Billy kept refusing. Which, by the way, Grim is the least assertive person in the world. He's way more powerful than both those children, because this was before Mandy was established as this like overpowered demon girl. Like they were fairly normal. Grim is way more powerful than them, but he's all like, give me the hamster." She's all like, "No," and it's like, "Wait, what? Why not?" Like he's not demeaning enough, which is really funny to see,
Uh-huh.
because it just shows a little bit of like cowardness on his part.
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually like they refuse and they propose a game of, well, they wouldn't know at the time, but it was eventually Limbo.
Yes.
And what would happen is if Grim won, then then he would take the hamster. But if Billy and Mandy won, he would not take the hamster. And the interesting thing is that what Mandy did was like, hey, by the way, if you win Limbo, not only will you take the hamster, but you can also take Billy. Like you can just take him. Like I don't care, just take him.
Yeah.
And Grim was all like, all right, fine. If you guys win, not only will you keep your hamster, but I'll also be your best friends. If he
Yeah.
hadn't suggested that, this entire show never would have happened. So it's technically his fault. Like Mandy never actually made any demand. She just said, "I just want the hamster. I don't care," because I
Okay.
guess she just knew they would win. So this was on Grim, which is really funny to look back on.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, Wait, just briefly acknowledge the question. Which character do you think stands out the most and why? I think probably referring to like the main cast here of the show.
I mean, as far as stand out the most, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by that. I
Uh,
mean, Grim is the weirdest since he's not even human. But Mandy is also kind of the weirdest because, well, I mean, she's just. I mean, okay, with Billy, like a lot of the things that make him a lot of the like reactions he has on things can sort of boil down to him being an idiot. But with Mandy, and I remember feeling this way both when I first watched the show and when I ended up revisiting it back in 2016, is the fact that I don't understand why she reacts the way she does. Like she's literally seeing the Grim Reaper walk in the same space as her, and she just doesn't care. And I just always find that to be very interesting about her.
yeah, and
So it's one of those two.
okay. And going back to the pilot, one of my absolute favorite jokes in just as Grim was appearing, Mandy just comes up and she sticks her finger to a smoke and tastes it and sees casually, it seems to be a spinning vortex of pure evil coming out of your floor. Like she's absolutely okay with it. Like that just shows how dark of a person she is. Like when she sees evil, like she literally tastes it
Oh
like it's an apple
yeah,
or
and
something.
it was really funny because it was just a very casual. She's all like, It seems like it seems like some kind of like vortex from something like that." And like she's just completely unfazed, like it's normal. It's just it's
Exactly.
very funny. I love Mandy.
I know. And going back to the beginning of the pilot, with Billy playing with his sort of GI Joe toys, with I was gonna mention how Maxwell Adams, he was a huge fan of that show growing up. It was even the inspiration for Evil Con Carne. But yeah, when
Yeah,
Billy was
you can
playing
see
with,
a lot of GI Joe inspiration in Evil Con Carne, actually, including the music.
yeah, yeah, I love the soundtrack that Greg and Drew did for both shows. But yeah, with Billy and Mandy themselves, I love the way their characters were established in the opening scene. With Billy, he's doing something that's technically innocuous while still kind of being destructive, which I think that would carry. I'll say that will kind of carry on to the show, and then Mandy just comes in and just melts them without a care, just melts the soldier toys without care in the world, like even the soldier's wife and kids, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually something a somewhat of a hypocritical philosophy that Billy has, in the fact that he's kind of he's someone who adamantly believes in stuff like peace and power of friendship and stuff. He's someone who really values that thing, but at the same time, he's a very destructive and violent person. So yeah, I guess in a way that does show up in the first few minutes, which is interesting to look back on, because at the end of his role playing game, at some point he made like the soldiers apologize to each other, and then they eventually kissed. So yeah, that's a very Billy behavior.
Yeah. Uh, Wait, I just realized that I have it on the Vote for Billy and Mandy poster the whole time, so I'm gonna switch to something that's more relevant to the pilot by itself, which is this animation drawn over here. You see it? Yeah, this is just when Grim enters and picks up Mr. Snuggles, and Billy, of course, mistakes him as Santa Claus. Iconic moment there. An iconic establishing moment for Billy and the whole show, like what you were saying, Clovis.
Yeah, did you notice that Grimm's laugh is also different?
Yes.
And I specifically remembered this because I remember later on when they were playing Limbo, like
Yeah.
Grimm made a very bad error, in the sense that he placed the sort of that sort of bar way too high, because he didn't take into account the fact that both Billy and Mandy are way shorter than him. And so at first he was like laughing all maniacally. So like, yeah, you guys are not gonna win this. But then Mandy just walks, like she didn't even have to lower her abdomen and stuff. She just walks and was all like, "Oh, what have I
Yeah.
done?"
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking about that Wimble scene, after Grim loses, I have to acknowledge how Mandy looks when she says, "A deal is a deal." You see the eyes there?
Yeah, I remember. It's
Yeah.
so weird to look back at that scene.
Yeah, I remember when I was tweeting about the pilot in 2017, like almost 3 years ago. I pointed out how this was probably a reference to the Pitt's Bible art that I showed earlier. Uh, if Let me just move it here. You see the similarities. It's like uh, it's like at the last minute they wanted to make Mandy's eyes more rounder. So, but this part here was left in.
Yeah, they do look similar.
Yeah,
And it's a good thing that you reminded me of that, because there's actually something I wanted to talk about.
yeah,
And because in this episode, like this was after they lost.
mm,
Grim was all like, I can't lose. I'm the Grim Reaper. I'm the master of the forces of life and death. And Mandy responded by saying, well, not anymore. You're not that anymore.
yeah,
And that's weird, because and this is actually something that you'll notice in the next few episodes. I'm pretty sure this is still a kind of a thing by the end of the Grim and Evil season,
right,
but it's weird because I think Grim initially was meant to be a character that would completely abandon Grim Reaping, but
right.
then later on, I guess the writers realized, nah, we don't want to do that. We don't, I guess they realized they had a lot more interesting ideas
Yeah,
for Grim as someone who still continues to carry that torch, which I agree. I think it's better off that way. Plus, it doesn't really make any sense for him to abandon it because that like him not being the Grim Reaver was never part of the deal. They just wanted him to be his best friend. So
yeah,
there's no reason for him to stop doing it.
yeah. And what you said, it kind of, it's kind of relevant to this question I got here. Do you think Billy and Mandy is too dark for audiences under the age of 15?
I don't think it is. I have no reason to believe that it is. I mean, I turned out fine.
Yeah, me too.
Besides, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure most kids will probably just laugh at the more cartoony elements of the series. The sort of toilet humor because that's how I was when I was a kid. Like a lot of the jokes that make me laugh back then, me today I'm like, yeah, I guess they're kind of funny, but there are much funnier jokes. Like to me, the funniest jokes are the darkest ones.
Yeah,
But back then when I was a kid, I don't think I even processed all of the dark jokes. So I think it's fine. I have no reason to believe it's bad for children. I think people are kind of overreacting.
yeah, I know. Like TV shouldn't be babysitters all the time. Even if we're talking about shows that are aimed at very, very young kids, like don't rely on the TV or for that matter YouTube to be a babysitter, you know. It's your responsibility as the parent or the actual living babysitter to tell them no, don't watch
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
I guess it help. I guess it doesn't help that I'm pretty sure that most kids probably wouldn't even find Billy and Mandy to be that dark. And I think this is actually something that the series has sort of hinted at many times. Like a lot of the kids that you'll find in the show are very like very implied to be sort of kids that are kind of desensitized of classic um iconic monsters that are typically known for being really scary. Like Boogeyman. Like when Boogeyman
yeah,
visited that kid from that one time, he wasn't really scared at all. Like he was not creeped out. And I think this is a sort of message that the show sends, which I agree. I don't think there's really anything in Billy and Mandy that kids would be that creeped out. They would just think it's
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's monsters. It's cool, I guess, but it's not scary.
Yeah, and I said this before on Twitter, but I sometimes feel that Evil Concarne is just as messed up in terms of its premise than Billy and Mandy, because it's this guy, this playboy, this billionaire playboy who was pretty much murdered by this fist through an explosion, and all that's left is his brain and stomach, and his headman consists of a guy who acts like a well, I can't say it, but I think you know what I'm talking about. General Scar, the way he acts, and a mad
Yeah, I
scientist
mean
who,
he's a maniac.
yeah,
He's basically a maniac.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I agree. I think Evil Concarne is honestly just as dark, especially because Evil Concarne there aren't really a ton of or really any children characters there. Most of them are
true,
adults.
true,
So I think a lot of the stuff that they go through is, I mean, I guess I won't say it's darker
yeah,
since the characters in Billy and Mandy also go through a lot of relatively dark stuff.
hmm,
But at least to me as an adult, both of them are around the same level of maturity, sort of. I don't know.
yeah. Okay, I think we have to wrap this up in a few minutes because the 7 o'clock has hit, and where Clovis sits, it's midnight, so he has to settle in for
Yeah,
bed. Yeah.
yeah. Although I don't have a problem with speaking for a bit longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, I I think that the pilot Meet the Reaper, I mean, is one of the best cartoon pilots that I've seen in my opinion. If Alpha J were to do a video on whether or not Billy and Mandy started off well, I would, and he says that it did start out well, obviously I would agree, because the characters are established, well, there's some tweakings that would be applied much later on, but otherwise the characters are established, they're funny, they're so funny, and just I, uh, I'm just rambling, trying to find my words, but it's basically a great establishment of a great Cartoon Network. So that's the simplest way I could describe my thoughts on the pilot. And
Yep.
Clo- and Clovis already shared his opinion on the pilot overall. But just to recap for those who are just tuning in.
I mean, I wanna, cause we've already cause I think we pretty much already said what happened in the episode.
Yeah,
They played limbo, they lost, whatever,
yeah,
and also this is the first episode of Billy and Mandy, and Mandy already smiled, which is really funny.
yeah.
Uh,
She did it
but
more
there's
often back
actually,
then. She did
yeah.
it more often during those early Grim and Evil days. But now, if she were to smile, it would cause disruption to the natural order.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, if it's at least if it's voluntary smile, like if it's not, I don't think anything's gonna happen because there was that one time she was hypnotized by Irwin, I believe,
Yes.
and she
And
did smile
yep.
and nothing happened.
Yeah,
There was
that
also
episode.
that Christmas special where both Grimm and the other, I think it was a vampire or something like that.
Yeah, I know who
No,
you're
wait,
talking
was it?
about.
Yeah. And they forced her to smile while she
Yeah.
was singing because they wanted to make Santa happy. So yeah, I guess if it's forced smile, nothing's really gonna happen. But if it's voluntary, the world's done. It's done.
Yeah.
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 Though I actually wanted to talk about Mandy a little bit because this episode, it's not just this episode. It's also the ones that came after the first few ones. The fact that I actually kind of miss classic Mandy more than I thought I did, and the reason why is because the dynamic between Billy, Mandy, and Grimm back then, you can kind of tell that Mandy was the sort of the one that you related the most as a viewer. And this is because she wasn't really particular, like, okay, she was like a cynical kind of weird um mysterious girl, but at
Right.
the end of the day she had the most like normal reactions to stuff. She was a lot more, oh, K9X Films is here, hi. Anyway, she was a lot more reasonable. She like she just she was a, I don't want to say she was a straight man because I don't think she was, but you can kind of tell what I'm talking about. And I kind of missed that because later on I think Mandy kind of got flanderized into
Yeah.
this like completely evil
Yeah.
demon girl who
Yeah.
never smiles. Like if you watch early episodes, while she does have like a sort of frowny face all the time, it's not like that common for her to have that. Only when she's like really excited,
Yeah.
which is not that uncommon, but
Or
still,
when
she doesn't have like a front.
or
Yeah,
when everyone disappears at the end of a dumb whisk, she's like, perfect.
yeah, yeah. About that episode, like that episode also perfectly encapsulates exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that she was utterly annoyed by Billy Grimm and his mother, like they were fighting and all. And she was all like, guys, can you please shut up? And then she made a really like reckless mistake. She was all like, I wish everyone in the world would just go away. Because
Yeah.
that's a very human reaction, especially for someone like her. I can sort of see that saying stuff like that.
Right.
That's what I sort of missed, especially because after, I mean, I know by the end of the episode, she was all like perfect and all. But before that, you can kind of tell that she recognizes that that wish was really dumb.
Uh-huh.
And Yeah, that's something I also that's a sort of humanity that I find in her in early Billy and Mandy that I do miss
Hmm.
because she doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, and your medicine about the Kids Next Door crossover, your mixed feelings on it, and what you were just saying
Yes.
about Mandy. Yeah, I agree. She was a bit more antagonistic than she usually is. Like, this is probably one of the very few times where she was the main villain.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only time I can think of that she was like a villain was in that episode where um those superhero folks from like that full on friendship,
Yeah,
yeah, you
I
know.
see someone. I see someone
They
pulling it.
exactly. They got revived, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Mandy was like,
The episode's
yeah, she
called.
was kind of the villain there,
Yeah, the
but
episode's called
I,
"Toys Will Be Toys."
yeah, exactly. I mean, even though she was a villain, it was a pretty like low skilled event. Like, I don't think it really matters all that much. But in the Kid Next Door episode, she was like, downright the villain, which is kind of funny, I guess. Like, I was amused, but it's not really how I imagine her character. You know, the sort of role she plays. I mean, I guess it is a crossover. You know, it's completely non-canon. Not that anything in Billy and Mandy's canon anyway. So
Right.
I'm not that bothered by it. But I think that revisiting early Billy and Mandy really made me realize why I may not be as into Mandy's behavior in that Mandy's actions more so in that because behavior she's kind of behaved more or less the same. It was her actions that was more or less different. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And regarding your character review on Mandy, that video you made about 3 years ago, I think read somewhere before saying that you you wish you could have remake it now.
Yes, I definitely wish I could have remade.
Yeah.
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 I mean, to be honest, in terms of Mandy as a character, my biggest issue is the fact that she's not highlighted at all. The fact
Yeah.
that she doesn't really receive that much attention. That's really all. That's my main issue.
Hmm.
The fact that she became flanderized, it does bother me, but I can more or less overlook that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, both me and Clovis think that Meet the Reaper is a great pilot to a great series. So we're gonna be wrapping up a bit, and yes, it's time to answer some of your questions. K9XX, what about Billy's personality in the later seasons?
Billy, I mean, he did become more. Well, I mean, there are two things that mainly happened. For one thing, he was a lot more prone to making these sort of self-aware jokes, stuff like there are times when he says things that obviously he would not say because of how dumb he is,
Yeah,
but they're sort of like metatextual jokes, so it doesn't really matter all that much. The other thing that I guess also changed is that he became a little more violent, a
yes.
little crazier. Although
Uh,
to be honest, my opinion on Billy didn't really change all that much since the beginning. So, eh.
okay.
I think the character that I actually liked over time was Grim. Like Grim started off as, you know, I like Grim, early Grim, but I do like later Grim a lot more because of the fact that he feels a lot more fleshed out, and he sort of got used to hanging with Billy and Mandy, which shows a lot of growth in his character. So I do like that about him.
Yeah, and I'm just scrolling up to the chat. Just Loving Life asks, how would you rate the show over the years? I think Clovis kind of made some points that would answer your question there, right? About rating the
I
show.
I how would I rate the show? Is that it?
Oh, I think I'm trying to interpret the question. I think she's saying that um, if the show gets better over time, what score you would give it, or something like that.
Oh. if is the question specifically about Billy and Mandy, or is it any show?
Billy and Mandy.
Oh, I mean, Billy and Mandy did get better over time.
Yeah.
Although I would I would not describe seasons 5 and 6 as the show at it, especially season 6. I think by the time we reached season 6, it was pretty obvious that the writers were tired.
Yeah.
Season 5 is not really as guilty of this, so I do think it got better, but I also think that eventually it kind of went a little bit downhill.
Yeah. Oh, frankly, I haven't seen every episode of the show myself. But for me, at least, there isn't a single episode that I hate necessarily. Sure, there are some that are a little underwhelming and not as funny as I'd hope to be, but so nothing that I despise. But there's something I forgot to mention. Clovis, do you remember the episode from season 5? I think Billy and Mandy begins.
Yes, I remember that episode.
Yes, and so the episode is where Billy, Mandy, Grim, and Erwin they were about to meet their doom, like they were dangling from something I forgot, but the
They
episode
did
is
not explain in the episode.
yeah, the episode is basically uh Billy and Grim talking about how uh they how Billy and Mandy be had Grim be their eternal friend, and of course they were completely erroneous stories, and Mandy briefly, in under a minute, talks about what actually happened, the events of the pilot, even showing clips, and then Grim was like, oh please, Mandy, that didn't even look like us. That was the best
Yeah,
part.
I really like that joke.
Yeah,
Uh, Also to answer, well, I see two questions that are interesting. One is that Mandy is a mean girl character. Do you think her role made show more exciting? Yes, I do think it made more exciting. I don't know what else to say. The other question I wanted to answer is any thoughts on Evil Concarne season 2 design compared to Billy and Mandy?
oh yeah,
Compared
yeah,
to Billy and Mandy, I think they're worse. I think Billy and Mandy's attempt at at a redesign worked a lot better than Evil Concarne's.
yeah,
Granted, I'm not. I don't really know. I'm not that bothered by the change in the
yeah,
style, even though I don't. I'm not that big of a fan of the colors in
yeah,
season 2 of Evil Concarne. They look a little bit. It's hard to explain. It's
yeah.
weirdly bright, weirdly. I don't. Are they saturated? I don't think they're that set. They
Well, there's
definitely
lot,
look a lot
but
different.
they have lots of more depth to the designs, like more shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as for
Also, I mean,
what were you gonna
I
say?
remember having a. Oh, sorry.
Well, what were you gonna say, Clovis?
Oh, I was gonna say that I remember having an issue with, not Hector. Bosco's design.
Yeah, he looked
Looking
too much
back,
like Stampy.
yeah. Although to be honest, I think I'm fine with his redesign.
Yeah,
I think I'm a lot more. I feel a lot more positively about it than I did back then. I
yeah,
do like Hector's new design. I
yeah.
think
He
he
looks
looks
more.
really cool.
He looks more like an actual brain, especially when you
Yeah,
compared how he looked in the pilot. He was basically this balloon, and then
yeah. It was
afterward,
a circle.
yeah, afterwards he was redesigned to look more like a real brain, and then afterwards by the finale, I mean by the last season, he looked like an actual brain with all the details.
Yeah,
But
there was
and
more color put into it.
yeah,
Also,
and as for my opinions on the designs, yeah, I'll admit I had some mixed feelings towards the season 2 art style, but it grew on me. As Boskov's design in particular grew on me, as well as Hector's. Scar, he didn't look too different, only
yeah,
his,
I don't
his
think he looks that different.
yeah, only he became much shorter, especially in comparison to Gasly.
Did you notice that Scar's design in season 2 looks less reminiscent of the earlier seasons of Evil Concarne than Scar's design in Billy and Mandy, which is very jarring.
Uh, yeah, yeah, I think so. I think in Scar's first official episode as a Billy and Mandy character, he looked a little bit how he did in the later first season episodes of Evil Concarne, and then afterwards in episodes like Herbocyto Maniac and what's the one where he steals a Grim Scythe again? A Grim Day?
That was I do remember. I think it was a grim day.
Yeah,
By the
yeah,
way, that's actually one of the best episodes of Billy and Mandy. Just saying.
I agree. Scars also. But yeah, he started to look more like how he did in the second season of Evil Concarne.
Yeah,
I
it's true.
yeah, and speaking of Gasly, I think a lot of us could agree that Gasly's design in the second season was the best, was the prettiest.
Yeah, I guess I would agree. I think I prefer Hector's redesign more. I think I don't know. I just really like the way he looks.
Yeah,
But
like
yeah, I also agree that Gasly got looked a lot better, or at least more attractive.
yes, much hotter. And
Yeah,
it's pretty common that a lot of the fan art of Gasly, they are based on her season 2 design. And Maxwell Adams did a blog post on Tumblr explaining the art evolution of both of his shows. I could probably have you seen that post, Clovis, on his Tumblr?
I've seen a lot of posts from Maxwell Adams to the point where recalling some of them is a little bit hard.
Well, I know for you, the one that is most special was when he replied to your question about why Billy and Mandy changed its theme song.
Yeah. Funny enough, he didn't actually give any concrete answer. He just said, "Yeah, we didn't really like Guy Moon's performance all that much, so we changed to Gregory Hindi and Drew Newman," which is interesting.
Yeah,
Although I do agree, I think they were a lot better than Guy Moon. Guy Moon's music was a little bit repetitive and a little too similar to Fairly Odd Parents, which is
yeah,
something I eventually
exactly.
noticed later.
Yeah, I know. Just like with voice actors, sometimes a composer's certain style could be pretty distracted. Like when I watched an early Grim and Evil segment of Billy and Mandy, most of what I'm thinking of is, well, pretty much any of Butch Hartman's shows, all four of them.
Yeah. I want to answer a question. If you could get across to the writers, what would you like to change in the storyline or characters? I mean, some of the things I've actually already mentioned, like the fact that I wish Mandy was less flanderized. I also wish that she got more attention than she got because I don't know if it's because of Billy's popularity
Yeah,
or something like that, but he was. I mean, I guess it's also that, and also the fact that he's a relatively simple character who's a lot easier to him into, more. He's a very polyvalent character. You can kind of write him wherever you want because of the fact that you can justify a lot of his actions by saying that he's a child and
right.
kind of stupid.
Yeah,
And I mean that's fine. I'm all for the writers pushing their creative juice and all, but I do wish that Mandy was a little more. Not maybe not all the time, of course. Just saying, I wish she got more attention. And what else would I change about Billy and Mandy? I don't know. There's not a lot I would change, to be honest.
yeah. Honestly, for me neither. But speaking about what you're saying about Mandy, just a few days ago, I saw a meme on Twitter, where it's basically one of those memes in which you superimpose a text and an image over some footage, and basically the joke is that they're trying to say that Maxwell Adams and the Cartoon Network staff, they they are they seem to be considering giving Mandy some character development, but then they'll be like, no, she's still a jerk at the end.
I mean, I guess that's true.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
it.
in the case of Mandy, I don't think. I guess that's an interesting question. Would I want her to get character development? Because I don't necessarily. Because I do like the fact that she's kind of a weird, hard to understand character. But I also think that out of everyone in Billy and Mandy, she's the one that has probably the most potential for character exploration. So I'm not sure how to feel about that.
Yeah, and I'm I'm trying to find my words. Yeah. Uh, K9X film says Mandy's parents didn't get too much attention either. Well, to be honest, compared to Billy's parents, they kind of suck as characters.
Yeah, 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 kind of.
Yeah, I think
I mean, I don't really mind. I don't really mind them all that much. I think they're fine, but I definitely think they're way less entertaining than Harold and
Gladys.
Gladys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In fact, Clovis did a video not too long ago talking about Mandy's parents and why they're afraid of her or something like that.
they're not. By the way, I
Yeah,
don't think they're that afraid of them. Like, I think people kind of, I think people take that episode a little too seriously.
Scary Poppins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like in general, they're. I mean, I'm sure they're at least a little bit scared of her. Like, I don't think that they can just boss her around and stuff. But
yeah,
I don't think they're like completely terrified of her. That's what that's my stance
yeah.
on
And you
that.
know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of how on Fairly Odd Parents, Vicky, who of course is also voiced by Grey Dwell Griffin, her parents are terrified of her as well, as shown in a couple of episodes, like Timmy's 2D House of Horror, and also in the episode with 2D's birthday.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that she's more evil than Mandy. At
Exactly.
least at least speaking in terms of her actions.
Yeah. Like
Because at the
Vicky
end of the day,
was.
I think Mandy does the most good to the world than everyone else there. Because Billy's kind of a wreck, and Grim only does things when he's convinced to do so.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if there's any comments that I missed while we were talking. And keep on throwing in some questions, guys. We'll answer probably two more. Okay. Well, I guess in the meantime, I'll answer a basic one. Six Rant Axe. Do you like Fred Burger Clovis?
Yes, I do like Fred Burger. Although, um, um, I, this is actually one of the reasons why I'm very skeptical of the idea of Underfist is the fact that I think I would get tired of Fred Burger
Oh, I
very
get it.
fast.
I get it.
I think he's a character who's better fitted for limited appearances, which I guess that did end up happening. Like I think he only like showed up in like, maybe two episodes, probably more. I mean, I'm not including the movies, of course. In the show, I think he only showed up like twice or something like that, or maybe more. Maybe I'm not remembering.
Yeah. Yeah, the amount of appearances Fred Burger made was surprisingly small. Like he appeared in Keeper of the Reaper, Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid. He appeared in the Kids Next Door crossover. He appeared in Billy and Mandy's Big Boogie Adventure, and he appeared in Under Fist. And there might have been another one, but I can't think of it right now. And of course, he was the mascot of Cartoon Network during 2007, alongside Cheese from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. You
The
guys remember that
best
era?
duo.
Yes,
Those two are perfect for each other. I swear to God.
I know. And but going back to that Billy and Mandy reunion panel I mentioned much earlier, uh, Maxwell Adams, he was a great while Griffin called him over the phone, and Maxwell, uh, he was talking about how Fred Burger basically passed away because he was depressed from the show's cancellation, and he got really into nachos, and from there he went away in 2015. But of course, this being Maxwell, he's just joking around.
I don't know, man. I think that's pretty. It's pretty legitimate if you ask me. I can sort of
Yeah,
imagine that. To be honest, I think I can kind of imagine any idea Michael Adams has because of the fact that you can kind of write Billy and Mandy into being anything. It can
yeah.
be lighthearted, it can be dark, it can be whatever.
Yeah. And I think I saw a post somewhere on his Tumblr about how his Fred species have a certain lifespan of probably less than 10 years or so.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's really sad.
I know. R.I.P. Fred Fredberger. I know Clovis would say yes the same way that you do. I was quoting your top 10 video.
What's the most quotable? I think one of the most quotable lines from Fred Burger was when he said no in Underfist when he was like crying while eating ice creams. All like no, 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 no.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
sorry. X K9X film. Sorry. He asks, have you guys noticed the background in the earlier seasons compared to seasons 2 and onward, like with Billy and Mandy's house and school?
um, I don't. I mean, I guess there probably are a couple of differences. I mean, I actually mentioned this in one of my past videos. The fact that um, Billy's living room at
Yeah.
night in early Billy and Mandy, it used to be blue, but
Yes.
then in the later seasons, it became green.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of the notable ones. I'm sure there are probably other subtle things.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think so, like at least one thing I know it hasn't changed since the beginning are the squares that you
Yeah.
always see in the background,
Yeah.
the little transparent ones that are range in colors at least.
Yeah. The video you're talking about just now, was that the video about possibly 5 o'clock saddles being the actual segment of the show made after Grim and Evil was cancelled or split into two in a response to my series?
Yes. Out of curiosity,
Yeah.
after watching my video, did your stances change?
Um, to be honest, when I was writing the script for The Truth About Grim and Evil, I actually was going to kind of mention about how the color style in 5 o'clock saddles looked, but I thought that probably would have been uh, it probably would have been too subtle, too minuscule of a point to bring up. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll just have to.
One thing I should mention is the fact that um even though I do think that it does resemble some episodes of I'm gonna say season two, even though this is gonna be conflicting information. Okay, when I say season two, I'm referring to the episodes that came. Um, well, some episodes came earlier, but after Jacked Up Halloween.
Right.
Yeah, there are some episodes where they share a very similar color palettes, but I should probably clarify that not every episode looks exactly that way. So, just saying. But I still believe they were made around the same time. That's something I most certainly believe.
Yeah, we'll probably have to wait to hear from either Maxwell Adams himself or from the storyboard artist Brett Farron about whether if it's true that 5 o'clock saddles was the
Yeah.
first true non-Grim and Evil segment that was made of Billy and
Yeah.
Mandy. But and
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like. Oh, sorry.
I still stand by me believing Ultimate Evil was the first Evil Con Carne segment made after Grim and Evil, and not the actual season 2 premiere, even though it aired
Yes.
during at the end of the second season. It was weird.
Because honestly, I think what especially convinces me that that episode aired like at least before the jacked up Halloween, or not, maybe not before, but around the same time they were transitioning to into becoming its own show.
Right?
Um, for context, you guys have to watch your videos on that because I might sound confusing since technically Billy and Mandy for a lot of people split a little a little after the musical special, but
Yeah,
in this case, I'm specifically talking about the actually intended
right.
order of seasons, which is so in my case, I'm actually referring to after they split. And
Yes.
but yeah, I think what especially convinces me of that is the fact that it's 14 minutes long. I have no idea why they would make it that long unless they were expecting a 6 to 7 minute episode or segment to air alongside it. And back then, the only ones that could have been that long were either a Billy and Mandy episode or a Evil Con Carne episode. To be honest,
Yes.
either of them is equally valid to me because at the end of the day, all I really care is convincing that it came before the split, or at
Yeah.
least around the same time.
Yeah. And Norbert says, Clovis, your accent kind of reminds me of my C++ teacher at my university's accent. He's Brazilian.
I definitely do not have a Brazilian accent. All I can say, that's the
Yeah,
only thing I can say.
yeah, I know. Um, okay, I'm trying to find my words here, but yeah, I also want to mention that Clovis is pretty much one of the reasons why my Truth About Grim and Evil series was kind of a hit when he shared the first part in the community section, and even in his video, which is basically a response to chapter 3, he recommended the whole 3-part miniseries in the description, and I thank you for that, Clovis.
No problem.
Yeah.
Although, hang on, I'm trying to verify something because when did that video? When did I upload that video? I think it was around. Oh, it was last year.
Yeah, was last year.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Just wanted to confirm that.
yeah. Okay, I think it's about time that we wrap up. But before you go, Clovis, tell everybody what you're working on right now. Anything that you're a plug-in.
I guess what I want to. The only thing, one thing I do want to plug in is the fact that a couple of a little more than a week ago, during my birthday, I uploaded an AMV, which I am very proud of.
Oh yeah.
I think that it's actually one of the few videos that I had to force it on everyone I know because usually I don't really show my YouTube videos to like any of my friends and family because like I don't want them to watch my channel. But this AMV in particular, I wanted everyone to watch it because I'm very proud of it. Plus,
Yeah,
it's a lot more accessible than a review of a cartoon they probably never heard about. While with an AMV, they can just watch the sequences and listen to the music and stuff. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what I want to plug.
I
The
still
AMV.
watch I still watch the entirety of that AMV uh, when I have time.
Yeah, no biggies.
Yeah. Okay. So, Clovis, you've been an excellent guest. Thank you for taking this time to talk about one of your absolute favorite cartoons and one of my absolute favorite cartoons with me.
I like talking about Billy and Mandy.
Yeah, I know, so do I. And Evil Con Carne, because they're equally good in my opinion. So I should bring you on again sometime in sometime very soon just to talk about Con Carne, like its second season. I already bet to that. Probably when that show turns 20 next year, when because the pilot aired during the premiere of Grim and Evil. It, probably when that celebrates its 20th anniversary next year, I could bring you on and we'll
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah. Also, a fun fact about that pilot is that I think it was made, or at the very least, it was copyrighted in 2000. So
It was.
it may have aired. Yeah, it may have aired a lot later than was actually intended to, or well, maybe not intended, but after it was
Yeah.
done and
Yeah, it
stuff.
was
So
never
yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, it was never aired as part of the Big Pick, and I'm not sure if it ever aired as part of the cartoon show, like even before Grim and Evil premiered in 2001. But yeah, technically speaking, Evil Concarde is 20 years old now too, but we just don't know when exactly the pilot was completed. We just know when it aired, in terms of its date, its exact date.
Wait. One last thing I want to say is that
Yep.
if you search it on YouTube, and I think this one's actually a lot easier to find, you
Right.
can actually find the end credit scene for that specific pilot.
Yes.
And the song that plays is the exact same as the one that plays in the title cards for
Yes.
early Evil Concarne, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And what's especially strange is that it's very possible that I actually saw that end credit scene when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That and also Billy and Mandy's. Billy and Mandy, I know I did listen to that specific song sometime in my childhood. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know in what circumstance I did. The only explanation I can think of is that maybe I watched it during. Maybe I saw that end credit scene during the. No, wait, that wouldn't be. Sorry, I have no idea how. All I know is that I have memories of them, but I have no idea how I actually saw them. So that's actually what I want. That was all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Jason says the pilot was completed in 1999 according to the copyright information, but then aired until a year after. Yeah, we kind of already said that.
This is about Billy and Mandy, right? Or is it
Yeah,
Evil Con Carney?
Billy and Mandy.
Oh, okay. Because I'm pretty sure it was 2000 for Evil Con Carney, or maybe I'm
Y
wrong.
No, you're right. You're right.
Oh, okay. You know, the funny thing about Billy and Mandy is that I don't do any research at all whenever I make videos on it, but
Really?
coincidentally, I happen to be correct about everything I say, which is really funny.
Wow. Well, I made sure I did some research ahead of time for this live stream. Even just today, I wrote down my notes and all. But
Yeah,
I know,
I mean
uh,
to be fair, the information you give is a lot more concise and extended, while the
yeah,
things I say are usually just kind of like vague statements. So I'm a lot less prone to being completely wrong about something I say. So
yeah, that's me. I like to research, especially when it comes to my special interests, and I know I'm not right all the time, especially when I'm either talking out of my head or get some information from a source that turns out to be wrong. But yeah, I try my best to be as correct and plausible as possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think my best achievement was predicting that the reason why Guy Moon was excelled, no, not excelled, expelled. I mean, not really expelled. I don't want to say fired, but that's probably what actually happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, I take pride in predicting that the reason why he left was because Maxwell Adams liked Drew Newman and Gregory Hindy's music better. So and I didn't have to do any research for that. Someone else had to. No, wait, no. Actually, I had to ask Maxwell Adams that. So I guess in a way, I became the person I'm saying I'm not.
Yeah. And okay. Oh, and Jason also says it's the only episode of Billy and Mandy to be made with cells instead of digital ink and paint. Uh, Maxwell Adams confirmed it on his Tumblr account.
That's actually very noticeable.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of cartoons that were produced by Cartoon Network Studios do look a lot more digital than ones that were produced by Hanna Barbera. You can
Yeah.
you can notice that almost anywhere, especially in Dexter's Laboratory, I believe,
Yeah.
because the its revival was around 2001 or something like that. And it
It
looks
was.
way more digital than everything before. You can also notice that in the Pop-Up Girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although Pop-Up Girls transition was a little wonky because it started somewhere in 2000, not 2000, in season 4, but there are some episodes that kind of have the old look, but also kind of have the later one. So yeah, it's an interesting transition to witness.
Yeah. I agree. Uh, okay. I'm sorry to those who are just joining, but it's about time that we wrap up. But in case you want a brief recap, me and Clovis were talking about the Billy and Mandy pilot and its history, and we both agreed that it is a really really good pilot. And I'm just thanking Clovis right now for being a great guest, and I hope to have you on again much later down in the future.
No biggies. I'd
Yeah,
be willing to do that.
yeah. Take care and stay safe out there.
You too.
Bye. Yeah, yeah, sorry. I know you just tuned in Wasan and Hilda 7 Productions, but uh, it's about time that I wrap up. But you could watch the replay, and to those who have stuck around this whole time, thank you. And thank you for your questions and your comments, and for enjoying me and Clovis Gus about this great series. Just letting all of that nerdiness out. And tune in next week. I'm supposed to do. Um, I should be doing a live stream. Probably on logos, which I know that a lot of you are really interested in seeing. Based on the poll results. Yes, Saranara Clovis. And Saranara to all of you guys too. Uh, Take care and stay safe out there.